India were dead, follow-on imposed, humiliation guaranteed. Yet 3 days later, Australia's invincible machine lay broken in Kolkata. You'll discover how two men, one fever, and 376 defiant runs rewrote cricket history forever, and why what happened at tea on day 4 still gives Steve Waugh nightmares. March 11th, 2001, Eden Gardens, Kolkata. 100,000 voices had gone silent. India were following on, 274 runs behind Australia, and the greatest cricket team ever assembled was tightening the noose. Steve Waugh's Australians had arrived in India chasing what he called the final frontier, a Test series victory on Indian soil, the one summit their dynasty had never conquered. They had already crushed India in Mumbai inside 3 days. Now in Kolkata, they were about to make it 2-0 with a session to spare. But cricket, when it wants to be cruel or beautiful, chooses its moments. And what unfolded over the next 48 hours would become the most improbable resurrection the sport has ever witnessed. To understand the miracle, you must understand the desperation. Australia had won 16 Test matches in a row, a world record that still stands as a monument to their dominance. Glenn McGrath was at his surgical peak. Shane Warne, though wounded by a finger injury, remained the most feared spinner alive. Adam Gilchrist was rewriting what a wicket-keeper could be. And Steve Waugh, mental disintegration incarnate, had built a team that did not simply beat opponents. They dismantled their belief. India, meanwhile, were fragile. Sourav Ganguly had only recently taken the captaincy. Sachin Tendulkar carried the weight of a nation on a battered back. And a young man from Hyderabad named VVS Laxman had been dropped, recalled, doubted, and shuffled up and down the batting order like a man searching for a home. On day 1, Australia batted first and piled up 445. Steve Waugh, ever the vulture, ground out 110. India replied with a limp 171. Harbhajan Singh, a 20-year-old off-spinner nobody outside India truly rated, the only bright spot with the ball, taking the first Test hat-trick ever by an Indian. But the batting had collapsed. The follow-on was enforced. The match, for all practical purposes, was over. Then came day 3. India, batting again, slipped to 232 for 4. Ganguly was gone. Tendulkar was gone. Only Laxman, promoted to number 3 in an act of desperate faith by his captain, stood between India and total humiliation. Joining him was Rahul Dravid, out of form, batting at number 6, running a fever, and by his own admission, barely able to stand. What these two men did next belongs less to sport and more to legend. They batted, and batted, and batted. Through the final session of day 3, through all of day 4, through every over Steve Waugh could throw at them. McGrath probed, Warne spun, Jason Gillespie snarled, Michael Kasperwich banged it in short. Nothing worked. Laxman, wristy and languid, played strokes that seemed to bend physics, flicks off middle stump through mid-wicket, cover drives on the up, late cuts that whispered rather than screamed. Dravid, sweating through his fever, dug in with the stubbornness of a man who had been written off one too many times. The partnership grew, 50, 100, 200. The Eden Gardens crowd, which had arrived expecting a funeral, began to sense something impossible. By tea on day 4, India were ahead. By stumps, they had erased the deficit and built a lead. Laxman was unbeaten on 275, the highest score ever by an Indian in Test cricket at that time. Dravid was 155 not out. The two had batted together for an entire day without being separated. Not a single wicket had fallen in 90 overs. Steve Waugh would later write that it was the day his team's aura cracked. You could see it in the field, the shoulders slumping, the sledging drying up, the invincibles becoming for the first time in years ordinary men in the sun. On the morning of day 5, Ganguly declared, setting Australia 384 to win. Most observers thought a draw was inevitable. Most observers had forgotten Harbhajan Singh. On a 5th-day Eden Gardens pitch, dusty and tired, the Turbinator turned into a demon. He spun, he bounced, he pleaded with the umpires, he celebrated like a man possessed. 6 wickets in the second innings. 13 in the match. Australia, chasing 384, were bowled out for 212. India had won by 171 runs. From following on to victory, only 3 teams in the history of Test cricket had ever done it. India were the third. The aftermath was seismic. Australia would go on to lose the deciding test in Chennai, and with it, the series. The final frontier remained unconquered. Steve Waugh would call it the greatest test match he ever played in, even though he lost it. VVS Laxman became very, very special, Laxman forever. Rahul Dravid, the man with a fever, became the wall. And Sourav Ganguly's India, defiant and unafraid, became the team that finally taught Indian cricket how to look invaders in the eye and not blink. But there is a deeper story hidden inside those 5 days. It is the story of belief. Because at 232 for 4, following on, against the greatest team of a generation, no rational mind believed India could win that match. No computer model, no bookmaker, no expert. The odds against were astronomical. And yet 2 men, one weakened by illness, the other doubted his entire career, chose not to accept the mathematics of defeat. That is why, more than 2 decades later, Eden Gardens 2001 is not remembered simply as a cricket match. It is remembered as a philosophy. A reminder that in sport, and perhaps in life, the impossible is only impossible until the moment someone refuses to agree. And on that stifling March afternoon in Kolkata, in front of a crowd that had come to mourn, VVS Laxman and Rahul Dravid quietly, patiently, and gloriously refused. If this story gave you goosebumps, subscribe to Cricket Chronicles for more legendary matches, forgotten heroes, and the stories that shaped this beautiful game. Hit the bell. The next chapter is coming.